You're not really saying that music can kill, are you?
Yes, I am.
Music can be a very powerful thing. Nothing galvanizes the emotions as quickly.
Hello, kiddies. We are going to have a real good time together. We are running the second part of our interview with musician and music professor Alan Williams. Now, we have a follow-up we need to discuss.
Yes.
Because last week, we will acknowledge, we spent some time going over a certain person's song that they use for intimate time.
Yes.
And there was some judgment.
And there was some analysis.
Yes, there was some. Yes, that's a better way to put it.
Right. Yes.
And we should sort of say, like, more information has come to light, perhaps is the best way to put it.
Yeah, we're not the only ones who are taken by this.
Correct. And so we should discuss this.
There it is.
So we have discussed
excited
this.
That we get to listen to this again. I've been waiting.
Yes. I don't even know how to pronounce the name of the song. Seabat?
I don't really know. But the album is Satin Panthers, which is cool.
By Hudson Mohawk, if you're looking and you don't want to Spotify this.
I still love it.
Yes. So, so this is a song by DJ Hudson Mohawk. His real name is Ross Pritchard, but he did an interview with NBC News, and I feel like I need to mention you found this, so I don't know if you want to be doing the.
Thank you. No, you go right ahead. Okay. I send it to you.
So they said to him, "Hey, your song, Seabat, whatever it is, has made a person's sex playlist, and he's getting kind of." There's some comments online happening about this. What do you make of this?
Right.
He said, "It's not a song I would have put on a sex playlist, but kink shaming is none of my business."
Which is the best response ever, by the way.
It
and the
really
song's been around for 11 years.
Yeah.
So, we know that our friend had this on his mix for more than the current.
Correct.
Interest. I'm wondering how many years he's really been playing it.
Yes. And we should... Sorry, go ahead.
The commentary is really interesting from some people's comments about it.
Yes.
Like, one person said that it sounded like robot dolphin sounds, which is not an inaccurate description.
I think it's the second description that, for me, is exactly what it sounds like, where they described it as...
an inflatable cloud toy falling down the stairs. Yes. Absolutely. Also totally works. But I feel like, the person who said that it gets worse the longer you listen, I'm crying with laughter, is not a bad thing. I still stand by it's like hilarious. If people can't have fun with it,
right.
I think this is hilarious.
Yes.
And then the other person said they had tears in their eyes from cracking up. Thank you for making my day, and my sympathies, dude, for the absolute roasting you're getting, and we'll continue to get in this comment section.
Right.
But you know what? I bet here's what my hope for our friend is that he's going to find a better girlfriend.
Live and learn.
Because someone is going to find it sexy, maybe, like he does. Mm-hmm. Or they may find it just so hilarious that he went balls out. No, I mean, pun intended.
Pun intended, yes.
Might be like, okay, for this guy to expose himself this way is so great. I'm going to give him a shot. And then hopefully...
That's what I was hoping, yeah.
Because I kind of love this dude because of the research he did, like I said.
And you, from the beginning, complimented him on his desire to improve, his desire of recognizing, no pun intended, shortcomings, and saying, how can I be better for my partner?
Right. He just, I think, got a little set in his ways.
Yeah. And I will note that Hudson Mohawk said he has a new song out that's gotten a lot of critical praise. And he said if this had happened perhaps a little bit earlier in his career, it would have been kind of painful to him to hear people describing this song as what they have. However, I feel like he gets the last laugh. It ranked number one on Spotify's Viral 50 USA and number two on the iTunes electronic chart. So
I mean,
he's laughing all the way to the bank.
right. And hopefully he's connected with our friend and
Yes.
maybe, I don't know, sent him a copy of the new song or taken him out to dinner or
Or offered
sent
to
him on a romantic
DJ. I was going to
weekend,
say offered to DJ his wedding
sex
commitment
fest. Oh,
ceremony.
I thought I thought just invite him to the party. But
Yeah, this
yeah,
is true. And yeah, like
I mean, he's not getting divorced. Like he might break up with his girlfriend, or maybe he and his girlfriend have rekindled, but they're not currently married. If someone didn't,
correct.
we're
Yes.
not encouraging him to find a
No.
new wife. But
No. And hopefully, perhaps even the girlfriend is able to laugh along with him and say, you know what, you're right. I should have said something 2 years before. This is completely ridiculous.
I hope that's who she is.
Let's put on something else and
Somehow I
let's
feel
have a nice
that's not
night.
how this went down, but I would
No.
like that. I would
But
like that woman to be the
I feel
woman.
like we both sort of hope springs eternal, shall we say?
Right. Yes.
And hopefully everybody was able to grow and learn, and I think also laugh.
Yes. Not
That
live, laugh, and love, though.
no, they not in that order. Certainly, I think you have to start off by laughing and saying, "You do realize what we were discussing."
Right.
Say what you
How
will,
has
maybe
being
you'll
around your
keep.
students and also working? I'm assuming they're bringing things in that maybe you haven't heard or you haven't heard in a while, and all of this is sort of just coming in and going out in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely. So a couple of different versions of that. I mean, sometimes they bring things in, or they'll talk about their favorite music, and they'll name drop somebody that I do know, and I'm just shocked that they know them. I mean, I just had a conversation with a student in the hallway a couple of days ago, and he's like, "Yeah, I was listening to Here Come the Warm Jets the other day, and blah blah." And I was like, "You know, Here Come the Warm Jet? What? Okay." And then he gave this a pretty cogent analysis of early Eno experiments and how they start to show up in his other work with Bowie and with David Byrne. And I was like, "Whoa, you really are listening to this stuff. That's shocking." Okay. But often, as you're sort of alluding to, they'll bring to me music I've never heard before. And there's a band, and they just broke up, I think, this past year called Black Midi. And they do, it is sort of a Cuisinart of genre, but it's so Cuisinarted that you can't tell what the original dishes were. It's a smoothie made up of I can't name the fruits. Like it's just so caught up and incredibly inventive. And I wondered what my students were finding in that music. And I think for them it was the synthesis of that they encounter all these different styles and genres and when they go out and check out a playlist or whatever. And this band seemed to have synthesized all of it. So it was like their greatest hits listening experience all in one band's output. Um, that band is folded, sadly. But I had to say, they played it for me, and I said, I'm going to have to listen to that a few more times. I really am intrigued by it. It's something I would never have envisioned. When you're the old professor, you feel like, okay, I can name all of the things that formed what you just played me. They were playing me stuff that I couldn't do that for, and King Lizard and that whole weird offbeat prog thing. And I said, okay, I see why you all said, I think the thing about it is you all are music students. That's a band that seems to me comprised of an audience of just musicians. Like, does anybody listen to that band that isn't? I don't
That's
know.
a very good point.
Right?
That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
I remember. So when I was an undergrad, I was in a weird little program at a conservatory, and the guy that had founded it was called Third Stream Studies, and the guy that came up with that term was this guy Gunther Schuller, who had been president of the conservatory. He had played French horn on the Miles Davis Birth of the Cool sessions. He had written classical compositions, blah blah blah. Anyway, they brought him in as a guest, and they asked us to play songs for him. And at that point, I was making songs on a little 4-track cassette, little pop songs in my world, weird ones. So I played one for him, and he said, "Ah, I like it, and that's a problem." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "If he said I like it, I hear what you're doing. I don't think most people will care about those things." And he was kind of right about it. It's like you have a very limited audience of people that are going to understand what you're trying to say and maybe agree or disagree with it, but be engaged with it. And that's not to imply a hierarchy of this is better, this is worse, but just to say, some stuff appeals, some doesn't. And the fact that he liked it was the death knell for him. If I like it, it can't be. No one else will like this thing. So, I've had a couple of students where I thought, I know all your friends like what you do, and that's pretty much all the people that will like what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How often or how do you keep a straight face when they come to you with somebody that they think? Because my 12-year-old came to me so pleased with himself, saying, "Have you heard Elliott Smith?" And trying to say, "I was 20 and single at one point in my life. Yes, I have heard Elliott Smith."
That's actually a name that does come up. That's one. It's really interesting. The folks that maybe, it's not that they were unknowns, but they were never. History of Rock will have a whole chapter devoted to Elliott Smith kind of folks. But over the longer haul, they seem to have a much longer reach. People will come to Elliott Smith at the age of 14, and it'll get them through high school. And
Yeah.
I think there's something about music like that, or Nick Drake, which would be Elliott Smith only in an earlier
Senior.
form, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And
Right.
but now there's gigantic box sets devoted to Nick Drake albums, and
Yeah.
there's a whole generation of people that really resonate. That music resonates for them. When I first got to Nick Drake, I just was like, wow, these string arrangements are gorgeous, and this thing, the vibe is awesome. But I was never that particularly moved by the pathos of the story. And I thought, do I need to know his life story to appreciate the music, or can I just appreciate the music? And I couldn't separate it because I knew about him before I really knew of it. And I think to some degree there's that romantic mythologies that the students also
Yeah.
part of. If you come to Elliott Smith and you find out about him, and there's no way you don't find out about him because
Right.
Right.
right there at your fingertips.
Oh, tragic. Yeah.
Yeah, then you hear that music filtered almost like in reverse. But I was listening to Elliott Smith when he was putting out new record after new record.
Yep.
Yeah.
Me too.
The trajectory seemed positive and growing. Like, okay, yeah, there's definitely some sad stuff happening in here, but this guy has pulled himself together enough to sing about it.
There's a
And
GD tack piano on Figure Eight. I mean, come on now.
oh,
Right.
now, right? Yeah, he's at Abbey Road. He's in his
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
And I just remember thinking, this guy, we're going to follow him for a long while. And so, the news of his death was devastating, devastating. And I remember I found out about it and went into a classroom, and there's nobody in the building. It was a little bit later at night. And I just started playing, I've forgotten which numbered waltz it was, the one that reminds me of Brian Wilson. And
Doesn't narrow
Yeah.
doesn't narrow
I
it
just
down, but
kept
yeah.
playing. And
But yeah.
it was a way of just sort of calling him to mind, and I don't know. There's music that hits us that way, and I think it's lovely that that your
Yeah.
child come to you and with all proud say, "Have you
It's
heard
just the
Elliot?"
fact that it's still going and then it still
Yes.
resonates. Are there any other artists like that who, like you say, are not necessarily on the cover of the Rock 101 book, But as time has gone on, we've been like, as a collective, everyone's going, "Oh my God, this person was a genius."
Yeah, I don't know. People have had their moments, and I feel like I've often discovered people after the fact. There was a little moment about Judy Still, um, right? And
Absolutely.
I first found her like buying physical media, some DVD collection of performances on the Old Gray Whistle Test, and I had never heard her nothing. And I'm watching for all the folks that I bought the set for, and then she comes on, and I was like, "Who the hell is that?" And then she does this awkward introduction, and was like, "Oh, this is really weird." And then she did this song, and I was like, "Holy moly, that's great! How come I never heard of her?" And in a parallel moment, I had a CD-ROM. See, look at the
Wow,
wrong
we're
idea.
digging deep here.
Telling you,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A
yes.
CD-ROM of all the Rolling Stone magazines. They put it out, you could buy it, right? And I happened to be curious about the attention we give records and stuff. And I went to the issue where Dark Side of the Moon was reviewed. And I realized it was like 7 records down in the review category. And that's usually like they put the big one first and then they
Right.
right.
Hootie goes
Dark Side of
one,
the Moon
and
came out. Pink Floyd was just doing another one of their experimental limited audience sonic whatevers. One day they'll write a song, but it isn't today kind of thing. But the lead feature was Judy Sill. She was the big record that they were writing about, and how could she have fallen off the radar? And you find out what those stories were.
Right.
But I for like there was like a month where I just listened to her 2 records back and back and back and back, and she was so ahead of her time. There are people. There's like XTC where you have a core fan base, and you're just gonna if you're an XTC fan, you're an XTC fan. You always will be. I have used XTC songs in my songwriting classes, and there is such a polar division. There was a guy who was like, I cannot tell you how much I hate that what you just played. I hate everything about it. And somebody else going whip their head around like, what are you nuts? I love that. Who is this? What is this? And you're
That's
like, okay, yeah, for each his own.
right.
I think for me, let's see, there are definitely a few. I'm a Crowded House fan. Neil Finn.
I'll show myself out. You and
I know
Heidi
this
can
is
go to
this is
town
my
on Neil.
he's
It's
like,
like,
oh my God.
and okay, they had a big hit. They have an audience globally, sorta, kinda, but
Oh, but
but holy moly,
oh my God. I could
right?
talk for days and
Right.
weeks and
Okay, so you're one of
years.
those folks. And I
Oh my
remember I was
God.
working in a video store with somebody from New Zealand, and she was just, the Finn Brothers record had come out, and she was
Oh,
like, one day I've got to get it. It's so fantastic. And I was like, you
it's
even know them?
so
It
fantastic.
is so fantastic. Um, so there are people like that who I think I could look at Neil Finn and say, I would appreciate him. One, he is incredibly facile as a pop song craftsperson. Damn it, these are just hooky songs. Secondly, he's blessed with a singing voice that conveys
Yeah.
so much more so that he
Everything.
can write a lyric that's kind of goofy and then sing it in such a way that it hits
It's
hard.
yeah.
And yeah, so
And
there's
he's incredible on stage and he's funny.
right.
As are the Finn children, let's be
Oh,
honest,
as are
too.
the Finn
Yeah.
children.
Right, and I love that that's become, a way of extending the family
All
corral,
of
sort of
it.
like the Wainwrights and like the whole 9 yards of
Yeah.
Haiti traditions. But
And Eddie and like so many other people that are bigger here love him. Like the Eddie Vedder love for Neil Finn is unreal. Got to, one of the many times I've seen Credit House was at a festival in Kentucky where Pearl Jam was the headliner,
ha,
and Eddie came and sat in with Neil, and then he opened with a Crowded House song, like a very deep cut, as he does with many people. But it was so great just because, and I've seen Crowded House multiple times in multiple countries,
Continents, yeah.
continents.
wow,
I've never forgiven my parents for being in Sydney when they for the final many years ago. I we can go into split ends. We can go all the way back. We can
I
go
only had, my
go
sister
on.
had a bunch of split ends, but I only had whatever, the colored, the one with I Got You on it. And,
Yes.
but,
But it's
um,
fun to see that they're most recent now, and then we can move on from them. But
yeah,
this is the problem when they get brought up. It was fun to see their recent album to actually get a lot of traction here,
exactly. Yeah.
which was really cool.
And,
So,
and, and I love that he continues, that he just keeps
mhm.
going.
Yeah.
And so that's inspiring to me, someone like that. And I am, yeah, I feel like the problem for me, like with an Andy Partridge, is very clever, very facile, but there's the element that Neil brings about something to the heart that's kind of missing in XTC.
Mhm.
Um, you don't listen to XTC for profound heartbreak. Uh,
No.
Yeah.
uh, Nonetheless, XTC is really a blast to listen to when you're
Oh
driving
God,
on the road,
yes.
all that kind of thing. And again, there's for me, there's XTC, Andy Partridge for sure, the whole band really, they're incredibly great at what they do. They seem to be able to do a ton of different things somewhat effortlessly. I don't know. Um, there's a semi-famous drummer, British, who relocated to Massachusetts a couple of decades ago, Dave Maddox. And I interviewed him for my master's thesis, I think. And I asked him, is there anything you played on that you feel like is getting overlooked that you feel represents you? And he was like, XTC None Such is the best thing I've ever done.
Mm.
I'm like, yeah, but you played with, you know, Fairport Convention, Joan Armatrading, Paul McCartney, Clapton, Elton John, whatever. It's all out there. And you're going to cite that record. And he just talked about that they gave him latitude to be creative, that they worked really quickly, that they had their stuff together, that he was impressed by the never-ending creative ideas, but also the ability to pull them off, that they
Hmm.
didn't spend a lot of wasted time in studios. And there's some behind-the-scenes footage from tracking that album, and it's like, damn, they really are incredibly efficient. Wow, I'm mega impressed at this.
That's awesome.
I want to be considerate of your time, but
Oh,
there's
sure.
something that I've been thinking a lot about recently and asking my kids about,
Okay.
and I want a music expert's opinion on this.
I'll let you know if I know of any.
Okay, well, yeah, you pose it to them and get back to me. I wonder if the Rolling Stones are going away in importance. That I feel like when I was of a certain age, I remember Steel Wheels, and I know that we are as far away from Voodoo Lounge as Voodoo Lounge is from like Let It Bleed or something incredibly depressing. But I feel like younger kids, my son's in a music program, no one's listening to the Stones, no one's playing the Stones. Are they just in a lull in that kind of like classic rock thing where there's going to be an upswing at some point and we're going to be playing Exile again? Or is it just another generation is just like, I don't care. I'll take the Clash instead.
Um, I think the Clash have also fallen by the wayside, but
Fair.
no, I think you're probably right. When I think about, I'm teaching a history of rock course this semester, and we've already covered the Stones,
Dirty work, sure, okay.
and those folks had never really heard of them, and weren't that interested in them either. Now, um, they don't see Mick Jagger as some sort of icon of meta rock stardom. He's not who they think of in a rock star. Um, I think the Stones, slightly outlived their welcome.
Mm.
Um, I mean, yeah, I remember Steel Wheels coming out. I remember all these things, but Voodoo Lounge, do we really care even at that point, right? Were we all still thinking, well, it's not Exile, it's not
Hmm.
Sticky Fingers, but it's okay. Um, I feel like they peaked in that little moment, and I also wonder if there's a degree to which the sort of blues rock template that's the foundation of most of what we would say is the classic Stone stuff, that seems to have really vanished from a current generation's musical taste, awareness, stuff like that. Um, we have a blues ensemble at my school, and they are hard pressed to come up with anything that I would remotely call blues. It's like,
Mm.
they play stuff like that's, I'm sorry, the Meters are not a blues band. They're in this film. Um, but for them, it's some old, American music that seems outdated to them. I think the Stones don't seem vital, fresh, threatening. They seem cartoonish, and they also, some of my students the same way. You get fed Beatles are gods so much that you just can't even
Hmm.
deal with that, right? So I think the classic rock names have been overly laid on top of a lot of these folks, so they're just not interested.
But I feel like the Beatles still remain. And I was
I think
wondering,
yeah,
are they. So I feel like for most of the 90s, Paul McCartney was stuck fighting with the ghost of John Lennon. That he was never going to be as young as John. He was never going to look as young as John. And it wasn't until I feel like around turn of the century that he kind of went over to like cool grandpa phase and
yeah.
is doing weirder stuff and is trying things. And maybe it's also we as a society have taken some of John's lesser admirable attributes and realized that perhaps he is not was not the greatest person to ever walk the face of the earth. And are the Stones fighting with the ghosts of themselves? Are they just stuck because some of those lyrics are never going to be "While My
Yeah.
Guitar Gently Weeps," which I know is a George Harrison song, but you get my point.
I do get your point, and it's you gotta teach brown sugar if you're doing a history of rock. And you're talking about the Stones, but you
Yeah,
have to say. So here's the lyric,
yeah.
and students are appalled.
Wait
Right.
till they hear "Star Star."
Well, they, profanity is not the problem.
Yeah,
Right.
Even sort of
Right.
yeah,
a sense of groupiedom would not necessarily be the problem, but hear them whip the women is just a phrase that you if you unpack that even a tiny little bit,
yeah.
and what they find, I think, patently offensive is that that lyric just passed as nobody seemed to care.
Hmm.
And I think you can go back and you can see critics of the day or soon thereafter, and they would say, yeah, there's a misogynist thing going on in the Stones, but hey, that's part of rock and roll. And what's I think healthy is, as you're kind of alluding to, is more recent generations they're not going to accept that. No, it's not in fact acceptable. Um, we then have to ask, so why do those tropes? Why were those tropes appealing? Is that is Mick Jagger expressing his true self there, or is he enacting things he thinks he's supposed to do? I
Right.
think the same is true with some of Robert Plant's stuff.
Mm.
Uh,
Well, he's a golden god, though.
he's a
Well,
golden god
indeed.
uh,
To this day.
to this day, right? I mean, I love the story about the premiere of the film, right? Um, but if you look at like the AC/DC catalog, and you're thinking, okay, but this is just patently offensive with no redeeming quality.
Right.
The Led Zeppelin stuff is stupid. If it's offensive, it's kind of stupid. The Stone stuff, it's like, oh, I don't know. I mean, it feels like a lot of posturing to me.
Right.
Midnight Rambler, it's like, ah, come on, you're just trying hard here.
Yeah.
Sympathy for the Devil. The footage of the Stones at Rock and Roll Circus when they're doing Sympathy for the Devil, and Jagger peels off his shirt so you see someone's drawn a devil on his, it's like, oh, please. My students would just be in the aisles rolling at that. That's just so funny to them. I think the notion that the Stones were ever dangerous or threatening is hard for them to fathom. Um,
Yeah.
but like you say, the Clash, the same thing. One band that not only fell off the radar, but I think people have buried is U2.
Mm.
They get no cred. They get no anything. And 10 years ago, when I would teach history of rock, there was a strong people hated U2. But even worse, no one knows who U2 is now. That's gonna be,
Do you think that's
Bono
going to
would
come
just
back
not
around?
believe it. Yeah.
Do you think people are going to dig up "I Will Follow" in a future generation and bring it out of a cave and be like, "Listen to this"?
I don't know. Maybe. Again, it's part of the larger arc mythologies narratives. You could celebrate I Will Follow, but then you're going to have to deal with Rattle and Hum and Pop, and you're going to have to deal with blah, 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 blah.
It's a
And
musical journey.
Songs.
Come on.
It is.
exactly. I mean, I kind of like the movie because I feel like they know they're coming off and
Yeah.
they're trying to
Right.
puncture it a little bit, right?
Right.
At the
They know
same
they're making
time,
Song Remains the Same.
yeah,
Right.
right. I mean, at least
Right. Oh
that's
my
that.
God. Right.
So in History of Rock, I forced the students to watch a bunch of these films because it seems that how can you truly understand rock without all those visuals? And Song Remains the Same is a blemish on all things, especially since that we now have such better footage of the band performing that we can, watch. But
But do you show that to them? No, we're
the
watching Jimmy
vignettes,
Page
Right.
in a
Of
wizard
course.
robe, and yeah.
yeah, but the fantasy sequences alone are actually far more fun to watch now because they're just so stupid. And Jimmy Page with the psychedelic eyeballs, and is Robert Plant really riding that horse? Yes, he is. Okay,
Yes. Yes.
okay,
Cruising along.
okay. Yeah, I just feel like there's that. I need to show students that this is how Led Zeppelin took themselves very seriously. This was shown in theaters, and people bought it and bought into it, and people didn't laugh hysterically at this, which is hard to believe, but this was a legit expression at the time. Um, the history of rock is so full of overblown gestures that do not age well. Hard Day's Night still works for my students, because it captures something that is a little bit self-conscious, but still doesn't quite understand the energy that it's generating. So it's
Yeah.
it's legit. The hardest part after that is what happens. Although, having said that, I know a lot of students that come to me and they love The Wall. And they don't love The Wall, the album. They love the movie.
All the planetariums.
I was going to say
That's
something
probably
about
that.
Pompeii.
Yeah.
Something moving in the evening sky. It caught my eye, and then it was gone. Something powerful revealed to me so vividly, as bright as the sun. Everything in motion, racing across the ocean, changing faster than the weather.
Floating on the Dreamline by Alan Williams is available March 6th wherever you download your music. For more information, you can find Alan online, where he is at alanwilliamsevidence.com.
I'm haunted by unsettled memories, the anguished pleas that begged you to stay. I hear a distant mournful